we're on a mission to talk to the 100 leading marketing minds in the automotive space. I'm Andrew Street, owner of DealerOMG.
Matthew Davis here, Chief Marketing Officer at TradePending. Why are we doing this? Well, we like automotive, we like marketers, and we like retail automotive marketers. Our goal here is to give you the insights into what these leading marketers are thinking, planning, and doing.
How do you take an auto group from a handful of stores to over 70 stores without losing your edge? In this episode of the 100 Marketers Project, Matt and Marietta from the Morgan Auto Group share how they've mastered going through acquisitions from the marketing side and from the e-commerce side, how they built playbooks that actually work for the dealerships to be able to scale, and how they've redefined KPIs that matter the most. If you're into automotive marketing, into growth, you're in the right spot. This is 100 Marketers Project. All right. Well, Matt and Marietta, could you guys give us a quick intro to you guys and what you do for the group? Marietta, you can kick us off.
Sure. So my name is Marietta Parente. I'm one of the regional marketing directors. We have 3 regional marketing directors within the Morgan Auto Group. So my role is to help over 70 of our dealerships. Me personally, I work with about 25 to 30 of our dealerships across multiple brands. And, just to help maximize, obviously, the marketing impact that I have on each of the stores. So that means everything from digital media, SEM, social, CRM strategy, and aligning with Matt and some of our other e-commerce directors. And so that is my primary responsibility.
All right, Matt, it sounds like you're more on the e-commerce side. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm one of several e-commerce directors that we have for the Morgan Auto Group. And I've been with us, I think I'm in my 14th year now with Morgan. And my roles have shifted in a big way, especially since Marietta came on board. And so I have, like Marietta said, we have about 74 active rooftops in the Morgan Auto Group, and I support 21 of them in my region. And my job as an e-commerce director kind of starts where Marietta's ends. So she generates the traffic, and I work with the teams in the stores to turn those leads into sales, essentially. So we've got a lot of oversight on the dealership website where Marietta and I kind of tag team a lot of things. And then I have my own thing in the CRM and with our sales teams, to come up with best practices and training and accountability and things like that.
Well, on paper, it sounds like you guys have a pretty clear guardrail between your roles and how you guys kind of fit those pieces together. Because there's a lot of groups where it's just like, the internet director, BDC manager, marketing department, IT guy over the CRM implementation. And it just seems to kind of like bleed together a lot of times.
Sometimes that's one person, maybe 2.
Yeah. But it sounds like Marietta's got a gift for finding ways to help generate leads that fall into your lap.
I would say
and
so.
And then you're able to distribute those accordingly. Is that kind of how you guys are packaged up?
Essentially. Yeah, Marietta works closely with our advertising agencies. We have a couple that we work with, and once they get those leads into the CRM, then that's where my job kicks in, and we work well.
Well, let me throw something at you. So you guys have had a little bit of growth the past couple of years, just a little bit there. Matt's laughing. He's like,
just a little bit.
What has changed for you both? Marietta, we'll hand it over to you first.
What has changed in terms of the growth in my position?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I started with the Morgan Group about 3 years ago. Actually, 3 years, it would be 3 years in October. So at the time, we had 2 regional marketing directors, and we were dividing probably, I want to say, 60 stores between the 2 of us. And so our travel, it was quite a bit of travel from Tampa all the way to Miami. So I was working with 41 stores. We did take on an additional regional marketing director, so that was much more helpful to take that, all of that marketing and divide it into 3 regional marketing directors. So I would say my role has changed now with having added support, which is immensely helpful. Additional e-commerce directors like Matt and the support team that work together really well and collaborate to help set the store up for success. I've learned a lot with acquisitions, prior to acquiring additional dealerships. I cannot say I was an expert with, learning how to set up a new website with Matt's guidance, because he's really good at that. One of many things he's really good at, being, I think, much more experienced when it comes to what is involved in an acquisition. How do you build out a website? What are the things that you have to think about and keep top of mind to set that new store that you're taking over up for success without a huge dip in traffic? So,
yeah, I would say the same on my end, honestly, because we have expanded and our growth has been rapid and it has been very involved. And so when I started, I think we had maybe 6 or 7 stores, and it has been crazy to see us scale in such a short time. And obviously change management has been one of the biggest challenges in a role like mine, as well as Marietta's, so we've gotten a lot more rooftops under our umbrellas respectively. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, has been, how do we make acquisitions or rebranding, things like that, as seamless as possible. And so having gotten the privilege of attending many an acquisition, we've established some best practices and kind of like a playbook of sorts to acquire a new store and go from A to Z as quickly as possible with minimal interruption to our business, and our operations. So that is,
you make it sound easy.
It's a circuit.
Here's a playbook. We got a framework.
Yeah.
I will
two
say
bullet
too,
points.
I will say too, every time we do an acquisition, we add to that playbook, right? We learn by our mistakes. Every acquisition, we take a look back and say, what could we have done better? Where did the process slow down? Where did we have hiccups? And so the next time we have an acquisition, we're more prepared. So I would say, each acquisition we have improved. Most recently was Honda of Port Richey. I think that was my most seamless acquisition as far as, syndication, website, launch, getting an agency up and running, a marketing plan, evaluating the marketing in that particular market, knowing who your competitors are. So now it's more second nature. So.
And did you guys rebrand with that new Honda store? With the new name?
It was previously Ocean Honda, and we changed it to Honda of Port Richey. So when you do a name change, there's also a lot of things that you have to think about, that you go and update and change to make sure you're routing all of that traffic to the new website, and all of the different social platforms and such are updated. So
what's been one of the things you feel like you got dialed in when it comes to acquisitions, and what's been one of the biggest lessons learned, we never want to do that again?
You want to take that, Matt, or you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, I can jump in there. So I think one of the things that we have really gotten dialed in with the acquisitions is dealer websites. And that always comes along with an acquisition. You've got to change from, the current dealers or the, old company's website to your, company's website. And that is one of the things that we have, I think, really kind of gotten dialed in. So, from start to the end of it, where CTA placement, pricing disclaimers, landing pages, all of that kind of stuff, we've gotten it kind of down to a science. And we have a lot of consistency within our group and in our regions. And we do a lot of things the same way. So after so much time and experience doing those things, Marietta and I can take an old Co's website and turn it into a Morgan website pretty quickly. We are kind of at the mercy of the speed of the vendors oftentimes, which can be a challenge. But that, I think, is one of the things we have dialed in. And one of the things I think that is the most challenging is taking people who know nothing about your CRM, nothing about your digital retailing tools, nothing about anything that you do with your company, and trying to make them an expert is
here it is all at once. Yeah.
And, being able to, serve our owners' needs, which is to get everyone up and running as quickly as possible, right? So there's this kind of a delicate balancing act.
And it sounds like, how many different website vendors do you guys have? Just a myriad of different website providers? Yep. Or are you trying to distill it?
We deal with 3 different website providers currently.
Okay. So that's not as chaotic as it could be.
Yeah.
And do you guys have a playbook from the marketing side when you guys pick up a new store, like some unique things that you want to do to help usher the customers back in that are loyal customers already and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely want to clearly communicate, to the existing customers, just the importance of how important it is to us to continue to provide, that same excellent experience that they've been previously given if they're a repeat customer, and to communicate that there's, new management and new ownership and what that looks like and who we are. So in many cases, we're communicating and reaching out to the existing database, with either like an email blast or communicating that messaging on social platforms, but or through direct mail.
That's what I think. I don't have a ton of data on this, but every time, because there's so many people like us that have had like a front row world-class education and dealership M&A just by the nature of the industry, going through all these acquisitions and coming up with ways for us to ensure, like something I've seen with a lot of the stores that we've worked with is just like a dip in the service retention really quickly as there's a rebrand, as there's some confusion and staff changes, and especially if like there's a name change on the sign out front. And whatever we can do from our desks to like, okay, let's just focus all of our marketing on our own database. And if we have more budget, then we can conquest and blah, blah, blah. But like, let's just make sure we own our footprint of the customers that you've already earned before we start trying to look at scratching a new month and getting new customers. And let's make sure that we own this. And so I guess it's just like it sounds like, Marietta, you're able to try to come up with messaging that helps convey why it's a good story that this dealership's had a subtle change.
Absolutely. Taking care of your existing customers it costs from a marketing perspective. It's a lot less expensive to do that than it is to go out and try to conquest and add to that additional customer base. Obviously, eventually you want to do that, but the primary focus is to, make sure that existing customer relationship with the dealership continues and that they receive, the same level of service, if not better, when we take over.
That's smart. Is there anything from like the, from like the e-commerce side that you like to do pretty quickly to change anything, or is it just let's get some leads?
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about as y'all were just talking here is we take a very similar approach and strategy when it comes to e-commerce, like you were saying, protecting your own before expanding, right? So we think about as soon as we come into a new store and we see all of the different lead providers that we have set up, oftentimes we carry on what the previous dealer had. Sometimes we just chop it all and start from scratch, right? Or there's a little bit of, mix and match there. But once we have that, we have our own company benchmarks that we like to get dialed in before we just start adding marketing spend, right? So it's really optimizing the opportunities that we're already generating. And once that is optimized, then we can start adding more lead providers and chasing new business. But it doesn't make any sense to really do that if, we're closing half of where we ought to be with the leads we have. So it's a little bit of a balancing act between your, how are you performing and how much are you spending?
It's cool. And it sounds like you've been there. You said you've been there 13 years, Matt?
Yes, I just finished my 13th and now in my 14th year with Morgan.
I just had my 13th wedding anniversary on Tuesday last week.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, we were making big commitments at the same time. And so it sounds like you've had a seat at the table from a relative, a small mid-sized group to helping set up those key performance indicators that the group might want to look at as you're adding stores.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger KPIs that leadership likes to look at?
Well, without giving away too much of our secret sauce, I'll say that we at Morgan have selected a few different KPIs, especially in the realm of e-commerce. We have them for marketing, we have them for everything else too. But in e-commerce, historically, we have focused so heavily on closing percentages as an industry, right? And it took some time and some convincing, but after a while, we've kind of gotten our executive leadership to take a step back from using closing percentages as the measuring stick, right? Because at the end of the day, when you think about closing percentage, it's a very good and relevant KPI, and it's good to measure your success by, but it's not, in my opinion, the most important, because it can drive behaviors that will potentially reduce your vendors, right? So if you've got a lead source that's underperforming from your benchmark, let's say you want to close 10 or 12 or 15% of your leads, right? And you've got a lead source that's delivering you an additional 10, 15 sales a month, but maybe they don't close over 8 or 9%. So now you've got the store wanting to chop this vendor because it's not reaching, adequate performance levels, yet it's delivering you incremental business. And if you take that mindset and extrapolate it to the ridiculous, let's say you only have one vendor that sends you one lead a month and you sold it every month and you got 100% closing ratio, you would sell one car and you would be hurting, right? So we have to kind of mix those things. So as we've stepped back from closing percentage, we're now looking at other KPIs that lead to that, such as engagement, or how many of our internet leads and how many of our phone calls actually made it into the showroom, right? So that's kind of how we have started to approach things as we move forward. And that's really been essential as we've explored new initiatives, things that drive a lot more leads that may not be the highest quality in terms of closing percentage, like our CDP. Right. So we utilize a CDP, and that can give us, new leads from known customers that haven't actually converted just yet. Right. So we know if they go on our website and they interact with our 10-second trade value, 10-second trade value trade pending tool, but they don't submit a lead, we'll get their information. We know that they're on our website interacting with that. And so those come over as leads, but those aren't going to close at as high of a rate as somebody who's naturally in market, ready to go, wants a trade value, gives us their information, right? So that's just kind of the balancing act, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate the mindset shift there. Is when you talk about closing rate, then you immediately get to attribution. And you start talking about attribution with any marketer, and they're like, oh my God, my head's going to explode, right?
Yeah.
How can you attribute everything to the first source or last source and then all the 80 touch points in the middle? So it's refreshing to hear you guys taking a different approach. I'm going to throw a question to Marietta there. So how do you think about balancing building the brand in a local market for a dealership, whether it's post-acquisition or not, with the Morgan Auto Group, just the name of the company brand, all the way down to where Matt and his people, like, we just give us leads right now. Like, we need to sell cars. How do you think about that spectrum of marketing spend?
Yeah, it's funny. We never get that question. We need leads right now. I think there's definitely a balance, between the two, because it's important, obviously, they both are essential. I think you can't just only chase leads, right? Because you end up commoditizing yourself, and it's, you live in like a race to the bottom on price. If you only invest in brand, you risk having empty showrooms. So we kind of follow like I would say 70-30 rule, where 60 to 70%, towards kind of activation and lead generation. And then 30 to 40% towards activation, and 60 to 70% towards brand, and then 30 to 40% towards lead generation. Industry research, and there's companies out there that you guys are very familiar with, Google and Nielsen, they say this is kind of their philosophy on it too. And the two should reinforce each other. So every demand ad should still carry a brand story, not just a price point. So we try to marry both of those and find that healthy balance.
Where do you like to do the branding? Like what platforms do you like to get messages out there?
So, I mean, connected TV, digital audio, when you're looking at branding and high funnel, traditional, I would say there's a certain portion that we like to allocate towards Facebook. That's not as high funnel, obviously, as traditional branding, but the conversions are typically lower on Facebook, as you guys know. But we do a lot of streaming, OTT. I think that's primarily where a lot of our money is placed. Also, YouTube.
Do you get your hand involved in the creative much?
We do,
With
yes.
the
We
messages?
we do work hand in hand with the production team and make sure that the creative is aligned with what the customer is seeing in the commercial to the online experience when they visit our website. Even down to the Google ads and a paid search that are served up and on Facebook, that messaging, that consistency across all platforms, I think is very vital to have that ad recall and connection. So it's not confusing for the customer.
And
Yeah,
anything? Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
No, it's just easy for like, that's what my parents think I do is like creative stuff and like, where's the beef type of marketing when you get sucked so quickly into analytics and conversion rates and attribution kind of stuff. But it is like coming up with that message of here's the hook that's going to make you listen to the rest of our ad on OTT, on social. And it's, are you looking to level up your career? Here's a story of our recruiting that we're doing right now. And then a call to action is to click here and tap on this application form, or, to have it built out in a cool, creative way that no other dealerships in the market are doing. Like why everybody else is running OEM assets and doing carousel ads on social. It's like, is there something that we can do that's going to take minimal work for us to have a better creative message than the other dealerships?
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's missed pretty frequently. We look at obviously a lot of our competitions, advertising and website, because what you want to know, you want to show something that's going to differentiate yourselves. And I think one thing that's commonly missed is having a unique selling proposition, a USP. Every dealership needs a unique selling proposition. Why should I go to this Kia store and drive past 2 Kia stores? What is it that I'm going to get differently, at that store? Most recently, we created one actually for one of our dealerships, Kia of Leesburg. And so like we talked about, what are we going to do to make a difference and have a customer drive, to this dealership? So without giving all 3 away, one of the 3 was including, maintenance on your new vehicle for 3 years. I think that's something that's a strong hook that resonates with customers, that they appreciate, that gets them to come into the dealership.
And it's a lot. Like even if you grab like the OEM incentive and just we're the dealership taking credit for it, that we have 2% financing available. And, if I was looking for a vehicle right now, with a good loan, here's where I would look, and look, it's us, because we have this, or we have, military discounts, and let's go after veterans, even though maybe all the other people carrying our brand have, but we're the ones hopefully taking advantage of it and putting the message out, versus just, you want to see cars, here's cars. We have cars and prices. And Matt, you had mentioned the CDP. I love the evolution of CDPs and people figuring out how to unlock their CDP. Are you guys able to use it and like deploy marketing on the CDP right now, it sounds like?
Yeah, we sure are. And that's mostly in Marietta's wheelhouse, but there is some overlap there, once those leads come in from the CDP to our CRM. But Marietta works really in tandem with the ad agency and some of our executive level folks to create audiences from our CDP. And, it cleanses that customer record and creates that unified customer record out of all the places we have their information, whether it's CRM, DMS, call monitoring, service scheduler, all that kind of stuff goes into one spot. And so Marietta, the other marketing directors, they do a really good job of kind of segmenting out these audiences and reducing waste in our marketing spend.
And have you been able to like distill any of these audiences down small enough to where it makes sense to distribute those to people that are in sales and just have them do outreach? Or is it more just on the inbound advertising with email social?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. I think audience sizes, sometimes that's can be a big challenge in growing the audience sizes with the CDPs. A lot of the audience sizes are very small, right? I would say in a case where you would want your sales team, where you have a valuable enough audience to make that outreach, would be like, for example, your service to sales. We use Automotive Mastermind at a lot of our dealerships, and we're able to identify audiences that have a BPS score, so a buyer propensity score, right between 50 to 100, and export that audience. That's a valuable audience for a salesperson to reach out to. Most likely those customers are in an equity situation, or they might be nearing like the end of their lease. So we utilize audiences like that for that one-to-one outreach from sales associates.
It's cool. Like if you get these audiences that are even like 10,000 people, that's big enough to deploy ads to them. And on social, if you're getting like a $10 cost per thousand, that's $1,000 to reach everybody. And then you want to get them 5 times. Okay, let's put $5,000 into owning our customer database, and then let's look outside of there. So the economics start making a lot of sense too once you're able to make these audiences.
Absolutely. And the agencies do a really great job automating that trigger-based marketing. And we are able to do that a lot of times through email, through social, and on Google. So we're working towards texting. We're not quite there yet, but that will be in our near future.
So I would like to talk about buttons for a moment. Not shirt buttons, but
like jacket buttons.
Pearls.
Just general buttons. TradePending, we do many things, but we're in the button business to some degree. The call to action buttons, get a trade in, estimate, get a payment. And I know that the Morgan Auto Group has been involved in a project. I don't think the goal was not to like improve the call to action buttons on the site and the CTA stack, but that's been an outcome of it. What has that project been? And what have you seen kind of net out from that?
Yeah, that was a really great project that we collectively worked on and collaborated with you guys on. So we wanted to determine what is the appropriate amount of CTAs, call to actions, to have on an SRP. What are the appropriate amount of CTAs to have on a VDP without it really interrupting the customer's experience on shopping on a website. Andrew asked earlier about benchmarks, and one of the benchmarks that we look at when we are implementing CTAs and buttons on the site is our form completion rate. And, that's one of the reasons we ended up going with TradePending. I mean, you guys know that you're at, I think integrated with 99% of our stores. If you're not, it's because possibly the OEM doesn't allow us to have you, but we utilize TradePending because when we were tracking those form completion rates with those tools and those CTAs, there was no denying that TradePending did have the highest form completion rate on your, payments tool, also on your value or trade tool, and in many cases on, your get pre-qualified, which is why we've had that, placement be pretty consistent throughout our stores. So.
And I didn't intend to necessarily set it up like that, so it was like a TradePending plug. But thank you for that. Actually, I didn't do anything. I'm just the marketing guy. But I think what I like about it is that you guys are actually intentional about the process and the project, where most times you just can go to any dealer website and they're just slapping stuff on there because the vendors told them to, or the OEM mandated it. And I love it that you guys have been smart about it. You've had a process and you have been intentional. So kudos for that. And there wasn't a question there. So Andrew, please have a question.
Yeah, no. Have you guys tried paid media to drive vehicle appraisals in?
Absolutely. Campaigns, that include, terms that are related to vehicle acquisitions. Vehicle acquisition, I think, will forever be, a focus for stores. Obviously, it's less expensive to acquire a vehicle from the street than it is to go to the auction. But we do have paid search campaigns that are geared towards driving traffic to TradePending's trade tool that work really well. We build out landing pages on our website, making it easy for a customer to kind of go through that process, regardless if they buy a car from us or not. We'll be willing to buy their car. So that's generated a lot of additional, opportunities for the store to acquire vehicles.
Have you or the agency that you guys are working with found any success through paid social to get vehicles off the street?
We do have some advertising dollars allocated towards those types of campaigns. I think it's more of a higher, broader approach. I think that the conversions are not as good as they are on certain paid search campaigns. But we like to capture both, right? We don't just focus on low funnel. We also want to interact with customers when they're in that consideration phase of trading in their vehicle too. So I think it's important to be present in both of those areas.
Yeah, what I think that's worked sort of well for us for acquisition, like my whole world is just social, like paid social, is going after folks who drive our brand. And it's like the message is like, do you know somebody driving a Kia? All during the month of October, we're doing a buyback campaign because of market conditions. We need to stock our lot, go through this 5-minute appraisal. And the idea of like calling people out for what they drive has been working well. And if they're just on the title and their wife drives it, that you see them sharing it back and forth. And it's like, okay, these ads are getting a lot of traction with people sharing and commenting. And then here's the application costs that we're seeing. And then there's the story of working closer with the dealer. Are these turning into trades? And are they turning into new customers or repeat customers to see if the juice is worth the squeeze?
I think paid, Facebook campaigns. You guys have probably heard of Facebook events.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different than your traditional paid social, but we do a lot of Facebook events where we have the trade-in messages or the conquest messaging to trade out of one brand to, conquest into getting into another that are really effective. And I do watch those, and I watch how many customers claim their vouchers, and those appointments are set, and it's nice to see when those customers come in. So we do acquire vehicles that way as well.
Do you feel like that's working for all the brands that you guys represent? Are there specific brands that tend to work better?
I think there's specific brands and specific markets where it works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'd say too that like the marketing is just one aspect of, one piece of the puzzle here when it comes to acquisition. You have to have variable teammates who are following up with these leads that know how to keep the focus on, what is that customer's primary buying motivation, right? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? And so often dealers will get a lead from somebody who might be interested in selling their car, and the first thing that they want to do is talk about, what do you want to buy? And it just shuts down.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Before it starts. Right. So having that, sense of urgency on getting an appraisal and maximizing their trade value and using the data points, the TradePending or whatever providers we're using is offering up to that customer to drive the value and get them into the showroom. So we can collect leads all day long, but if we don't follow up with them correctly, then we'll end up with a lot of waste.
Well, you can't talk about sales and leads and follow up these days without somebody's tripping over the word AI. What are you guys? Right. Are you guys deploying that in any way when it comes to lead follow-up, lead management, lead handling, lead routing, lead leading, anything?
Yes, we are. And that was actually a big part of our decision to choose a new CRM provider, which we did about a little over 2 years ago. And it has been a very long and worthwhile project, but one of the benefits of the CRM company we chose was that it has AI built in to many areas of the CRM, not just customer follow-up. And that's a big vision of this company is, the direction they're going to head is, implementing more AI to just make the dealers' lives easier. And so, but as it stands now, we use AI for customer follow-up. It's basically made email templates obsolete. I mean, there's really no reason to have to pick an email template and hit send anymore when we have AI that can read the entire lead, the conversation history, the deal, like the purchase history, the service history. We have all these data points that we can personalize our outreach, our cold outreach when we first get that lead for a much higher quality engagement than we would have had otherwise. So we use it for that. I'll also use AI for internal communication, with my teams, or whether it's my recap email to our executive team at the end of the week, just keeping track of my notes from everything we've done this week. There's other areas in which we use AI for, just getting data or extracting, analyzing large data sets to help drive decisions that we make.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I just tried to run a couple of big data sets through ChatGPT.
Oh, if you used 5, just forget about it.
I switched to 4, and I ran it through, and I said, compare these 2 data sets, and it came back with stuff that wasn't in either data set. And I was like, well, where did you get this from? And they're like, well, I apologize, I made this up.
Yeah, I'm just hallucinating.
Marietta, how are you?
There's some caveats there.
Yeah. Marietta, how are you finding AI to be a part of your workflow these days?
I use it daily. Most interestingly today, obviously 48 hours until our month end close for business for September. And so a lot of times I'll communicate with stores where they'll ask me, hey, can you help me out? Can you do a deep dive? I feel like something's off, right? Traffic has stopped, it's slowed down. And there are so many things that you can look at, right? There, you could go through the website and look at the experience of the website. Is everything functioning? Have I called every phone number? You're going to look at Google Ads. You're going to look at the conversions on Google Ads. Same thing with GA4. And so today, when I was sending the most updated district reports I'm actually even going to pull up the email to reference it to you guys, to our ad agencies that we work with. We have 5 different agencies that we work with on a monthly basis. And so I thought, I know I'm going to forget some things to go through and check, but I did use, ChatGPT to create a basically marketing checklist, if you will, that, kind of outlines what's important for a dealership for an agency to look at. And I sent it to them, and I'll even read it to you. But I put this checklist together for your marketing efforts, an audit, if you will. Like, please have your team go through each of the items, the ones that apply to you, to help determine the deficiencies in our lead count. This store in particular, we're struggling a little bit with our lead opportunities. And it basically just gave me a whole, audit and checklist from website and analytics to paid media, SEO and organic visibility, and then social media and reputation. So anything that could impact lead opportunities and traffic.
That's badass.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
guess I'll reference something from today.
Yeah,
because it's easy to have like a fruitful conversation with somebody who knows their stuff on the other end with the agency and on the dealer side, and then like the follow through of, okay, what all did we promise? Can we encapsulate that? Can we look at, okay, I've got some homework to do to pull in some data to help us make more educated decisions based on what this specific store needs, not the whole group, but just this snowflake of a dealer that has its own unique needs. And let's speed up that process of coming up with a solution. I think the world's becoming a better place is the point of what I'm saying.
It's definitely a more efficient way to go about it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys have some stuff on the roadmap too that you haven't quite launched yet with texting. Anything else big on the radar for you guys?
Yeah, I would say there is. We have a lot of corporate initiatives that we have running at the current time, but one of the biggest ones that is kind of part of our secret sauce as well. Like, I can't really give you guys too much here. But I'll say that there is one thing that we have found as a common denominator between all of our higher performing stores. And so, of course, we want to take that. We want to get all of our stores, using this effort here. And so what we've determined is that the stores that enjoy the highest closing percentages and the highest other measurable KPIs that we use to gauge success in our operations is our managers' involvement with the leads. And so one, big initiative that we've come up with recently is to track our sales leaders' activity, not just our salespeople, our internet manager, our BDCs, but the key decision-making managers in the dealership, and how often are they engaging with our customers via the CRM, our virtual showroom. So we have a report we've kind of put together that kind of highlights those opportunities to see where have we offloaded the majority of our follow-up to, an internet manager or a BDC, and, how much do we have our key decision-making managers involved with the leads. And I think that is going to be one of the most impactful initiatives that we have launched ever.
That's cool. Are you guys looking at marketing as a direction to help with that one-to-one outreach from the GM and from the managers, or is it just like the general managers themselves?
How much of a silver spoon do you have to give them, or a silver platter, I guess is another way to ask that.
Just to make it as simple as possible. Here's the list. Here's who you're calling.
I have taken all of our employees that are performing at an acceptable level or, achieving excellence in that department. And I have done sort of a meta-analysis on, what are these managers doing all day long and why are they getting the results they're getting? And it comes down to activity, right? It comes down to the quality of that activity. And so for my stores who need a silver spoon or how to figure out, well, how do I get into the green? You know what I mean? So I've taken that analysis and boiled it down to the right number of phone calls, text messages, and emails every day, and how long that's going to take every day for all of our managers to accomplish this. And so, the quantity of the follow-up is just one piece, but then dialing in that quality of follow-up as well is what really puts a bow on it and makes it effective.
I would love to have more of that, of hey, here are our top clients. These are your best friends. These are the people you need to concentrate your energy and outreach and networking. And
Amen. Amen. Marietta, what's on your radar for the back half of the year, or the back third quarter of the year?
I think something that we just
almost fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter, catch up, Matt. No, I'm just kidding. I think I will say one thing is kind of a common known thing, but I'll tell you something that is not necessarily new, but something we continue to work on that I think is really important, and it doesn't cost a dealership any more money to do, but it is very impactful, is focusing on the site speed of your website. We did an audit most recently of, the UTM codes and all the tags that we had listed on our websites. And I mean, it was quite shocking. There was a lot of, things on there that companies were no longer doing business with that were slowing down the speed of our website. I mean, you can have a perfect advertising plan, but if your website experience is horrific and it's slow and it's annoying, you're going to have, your engagement rate's going to be really low. So we focus heavily on engagement rate and making sure that we only have the bare minimum of scripts on our site that are needed. And so that we can make sure that our site speed and experience is really easy for a customer to navigate through. It's not that easy just to monitor that. I mean, we have a vendor vetting process every Monday. So anytime we add a different company, a different product, and Matt knows this because we've been doing business with TradePending for a long time, but anytime we add TradePending to a store, even though we do business with you, we send that submission through vendor vetting so that we can track all of these tools that are going on the website, so that it doesn't get out of control and kind of bog down that site speed. So form completion rate, So form completion rate and site speed, I would say, are two things we focus heavily on.
I feel like that should be in a world that's perfect. That should be on that vendor to be okay, we're no longer working with them. Let's pull our stuff out. You guys just happen to have the internal staff to know the value of pulling scripts off of a website and codes and GTMs and all the stuff. The containers and all that stuff is just dangerous. It slows the site down, and other vendors can now work with competitors, and now they have a growing list of everybody who's coming to your website to be able to retarget and to pull data from them, where the dealer's just kind of left exposed. So it's cool. Not a lot of dealers talk about taking old scripts off of their website because that's number 16,000 on the list of things that are important, but it's pretty important.
Our COO, Tom Moore, does not skip a beat. I mean, he will tell you every single time, make sure that you notify. We have a designated person who has a running, Excel spreadsheet that has a list of every script and every, button and vendor that we interact with and have on our website. So we don't rely on the website companies to keep track of that. We've realized that is wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we do ask our vendors to kind of be a safety net to make sure that they back us up in that process. And a lot of them do a great job to help with that.
Well, you guys do a great job of representing, for one, yourselves, and you seem like incredibly capable people, and for what you do, and also just like representing the Morgan Auto Group. Like, you guys make it seem like such a well-oiled machine. So don't tell me if I'm wrong with any of these things. But anything people should know, like, do you guys want anybody to come follow you on LinkedIn or anything like that?
Sure. The more the merrier. I check my LinkedIn once every 6 months when I remember to.
That's about how often I hear from Matt. Yep.
Importantly, come like us on social media on all of our stores in the Morgan Auto Group.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Even
buy and
better.
service and trade in with them, and maybe parts. Who knows?
There you go.
Hey, well, Matt and Marietta, it's been a pleasure talking with you guys, and Matthew, it's good to see you out of your studio where I look maybe a little bit more professional than you for the first time.
Yeah, it's first time for everything.
Guys, it was a pleasure, and thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
So
Thank
much
you,
for having
Andy.
us.
Thank you, Matthew. And you too, Marietta. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please subscribe to the show. It helps us get out to more people like you. And if you know somebody, or you're somebody that's a sharp marketer in automotive, please reach out to us. We'd love to feature you on the show. Reach out to Ashley at DealerOMG.com.